Hi everyone, what I'm going to do now is a free step-by-step class how to decorate a pumpkin. I would really appreciate if you clicked share and got the word out there. If you do have any questions, just post your questions in the comments below and I will respond to everybody later on. Hope you enjoy it. So this is a very simple design. So first of all, get yourself a pumpkin. We purchased these pumpkins down in Rathvilly Garden Centre in County Carlow, but most supermarkets are selling pumpkins. So first of all, we scooped it out. Keep the lid because I'm going to use that as part of the arrangement. Now when we were cutting out the hole, we measured the hole that it fit this bowl here. But this could be a container from your own kitchen presses, like a Pyrex dish, a plastic bowl. So just cut the hole big enough then that the bowl will fit down into it. So using then a block of floral foam, what you need to do is soak your foam first. This one has been soaked. Cut about 2/3 of the block and the block fits down into the container perfect. Now again, if your bowl is slightly different size, you can adjust it. Because the bowl is set right down into the pumpkin, I don't feel it's necessary to anchor tape it in. But if you feel that maybe you're transporting this, maybe you're going to give this as a present to somebody, well then there'd be no harm at all to put a little piece of anchor tape across it just to secure it in place. Now I'd like to use the lid. I love the lid when we make these pumpkin designs. So using, we call these waxing sticks, but lollipop sticks or something similar. Like even a kebab stick would do the same job. And you can see the way I've just pointed both ends. And what you're then able to do, so decide what angle you want to use. Let me see, I think I'll use it this way. So then get your sticks, insert them up into the pulp of the pumpkin. I think 2 might be sufficient. I have 3 just in case. And then what I'm able to do then is push the sticks down into the floral foam and that'll secure, can you see my hat? Then I have it in place. I'm just going to slightly adjust that. There we go, that one's after coming back out again. Don't panic, it's not a big deal. I just kind of want to get it in on just slightly more of an angle down into the floral foam just to make sure it's nice and secure. So next thing you need is a little bit of foliage. Now I've chosen to use little pieces of eucalyptus. You can go out to your garden and give your little trees or bushes a little bit of a trim, and this is all we're looking for, just short little lengths. But listen, you can use any foliage at all. When you go out to your own garden, if you have a little bit hebes, ivy, elaeagnus, euonymus, pittosporum, like any foliage will do. If you're not too sure, take a photograph of the foliage you have in your garden, take a close-up, post it in the comments below, and then I'll be able to advise you whether that's going to be suitable. So what I want to do is just around the very bottom of the container is insert a few little pieces there, do you see, on a slant. Now I've kind of prepared these foliage pieces just to take a little bit of pressure off, and also it kind of speeds up the video a little bit. But just make sure all the ends are nice and clean, that you don't have any leaf, at the bottom of it. The stem has to be nice and clean that you insert into the foam, because otherwise if there's leaves going into the foam, it clogs it up, it makes the hole a little bit bigger, and then more than likely something is going to fall out. Now you can see there with these pieces of foliage, they're not all the same length. And that doesn't matter. I want this to be real casual. So even if you have children at home during maybe the October bank holiday week when the kids have a week off school, you could have fun with them. And again, don't be worrying if they're not putting the pieces in exactly right. It doesn't really matter. It just would be the fun part of it. And again, maybe they could give them as a present to maybe neighbours or their grandparents or whoever. If they're still in school, they could bring it into the teachers. So you can see there the way I've just done a little border of foliage around the bottom. Now when you're doing this at home yourself, it's easier if you actually look at it when you're putting them in. I just work over myself for the camera so you can kind of get an idea of what's happening. Now with some more smaller pieces, what I want you to do is cover in the floral foam, but put all the pieces in on an angle. So I often describe it to my students like you're throwing darts. So if you say that to your children at home, or even in your own mind, think of that you're throwing darts of foliage into the floral foam. So that's the sort of positioning. And then you kind of get a little bit wild with your darts, so you can see that you're hitting what we call the dartboards, the floral foam, from all different angles. So sometimes you're hitting back here, and sometimes you're hitting in the front, and sometimes you're hitting in from the sides. Do you get the idea? And again, if you were doing this and you were looking at it, I'll turn it around to me now in a second, okay? But when you're actually looking at it, it's so much easier. So I'm kind of working on top of myself and backwards here, and I'd be making a right hands of the game if I was actually playing darts. Now I'm going to turn it around to me so I can just have a little view. God, Janette, you didn't do too bad on your darts there. So I just need a couple of extra ones. I often describe this to the students as fill in, fill in, fill in, you know what I mean? And that's what you're doing, is any kind of parts of the floral foam that kind of like draw attention, that you can kind of see them real obvious, well that's where you need it. So as you can see, if you cut the pieces really, really short to start off with, you basically can't go wrong. I would probably advise you, don't overfill it with too much foliage. It's better off to leave a little bit of space, and then you can put the flowers in. And then if you still have little gaps kind of showing on the floral foam, go back afterwards and put more foliage in. Now, flower wise, because it's autumn, okay, I kind of have an autumnal selection of flowers in stock here at the school at the moment. And both of the flowers that I'm going to use are long lasting flowers. Now people always ask me, how long will the pumpkin last? The pumpkin will last probably a bit longer than the flowers, and the foliage will last. So you're probably talking 12 to 14 days, but depending on how warm the room is. So probably don't keep this in the sitting room where it's really, really warm. Maybe your hallway that's a little bit cooler, and again you could have it on the hall table. Or again, if you have maybe a sealed in porch, this would be ideal to have in the porch on the floor, and again it'd be, or even on a small little table, and be a nice welcome gift for people like maybe arriving at your house. Then during this pandemic we're not supposed to be leaving our houses, but you get the idea, even if it's just the milkman coming to collect his money. So the first flower I'm using is the Proteus. These are an exceptionally long-lasting flower. Now you don't have to use these. When you're at the supermarket or when you're passing your local flower shop, pop in and see what they have available. Like one of the best flowers and long-lasting, and especially if there's children getting involved, you can't beat the baby carnations and chrysanthemums, and they will work out really, really cheap. So again, use them, they're absolutely fine. Kind of go on the colours. Like again, with the colour of the pumpkin, you know, that way I kind of think like these autumnal shades look really, really well. These have quite long, thick kind of woody stems. So you can see the way I'm cutting them short, and then I'm like trimming off the foliage before I insert the flower. So can you see the idea there first of all? I'm not using any particular pattern as such. What I did was I placed one kind of near the centre, and then I'm kind of coming up to see a little bit high then with another one, and then I'm going to go a little bit lower, if you want to call it like in between it, kind of down there a little bit lower on that side, and in between it maybe down a little bit lower on the opposite side. Now again, when you're doing this, don't try and do it over yourself like what I'm doing, because you really need to be looking at what you're doing. So I'm hoping to God that looks okay. I'm going to turn it around now and have a little peek at it. Not too bad, it's a bit square looking, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get an extra one, and I'm going to bring it out to the right hand side, okay? My right as I look at it, and I'm probably going to get another one, and I'm going to place it to the left hand side now in a second. So I have a couple of leucadendron just while I'm waiting on Deirdre to get me that Protea, and I'm now going to sit a couple of the leucadendron in between to see what I'm doing. Now the thing about the leucadendron, a lot of flowers class this as a foliage. It's a great long lasting, I would class it as a flower. The variety of this is Safari Sunset, and they last for absolutely ages. Now again, a bit like the Protea, they have a woody stem on them. You need to kind of cut them on a sharp kind of like 45-degree angle to get them into the foam. So around the centre Protea that I started off with, I'm just going to insert maybe 3 of these leucadendrons kind of as a focal point. And Deirdre's just got me one more spare leucadendron, which I'm going to bring out to my left hand side as I look at the arrangement. And again, it just kind of stops that square look, which I wasn't really mad about at the beginning. Again, as I said, when you're doing this, look at it, you know what you're doing. So can you see the effects there so far? By bringing the 2 out to the side, it's kind of elevated the shape of the arrangement as well, and brought it kind of like more oval. So now I've inserted 3 of the Proteas, and now I'll probably bring leucadendrons. I'm now going to bring 1 or 2 of the leucadendrons, maybe just a little bit out towards the sides as well, again as a little bit of filler. Now as I said, these could be chrysanthemums or baby carnations or whatever flowers happen to be in stock in your local supermarket. I'm going to just turn that around just to give you an idea. Do you see how simple that is? Like again, we've 2, 4, 6, there's 7 of the Proteas, and there's 5 of the leucadendrons. Now again, you could make that 7 large carnations and 5 chrysanthemum heads. Do you know the way, again, just kind of for substituting. Now also what I have in stock here is the Hypericum berry. Now this could be grown in your garden, and also what's in flower in the garden during the month of October is the viburnum. So go out to your garden, get some of the viburnum, it's a foliage, a little flower on it, a little berry on it, and use that as a filler in between. Otherwise, if you do like the Hyperion berry, you can grow this in your own garden as well, but flower shops will have it for sale. The green is probably an unusual one. It's normally the most popular one is probably the kind of like reddy orange, kind of like rusty coloured one, which is absolutely beautiful. Again, I just picked up the green because I just thought it would be a little bit different. So can you see the idea there? I'm just removing some of the foliage because I do find the foliage goes off very fast. And basically, in between the flowers that's already in the arrangement, I'm just sitting in a couple of these Hyperion berries, you see here and there, and it's just giving a texture. As I said, we're keeping this very, very simple. Something, as I said, that you can copy at home. It's probably not the most commercial arrangement, you know, that way. Will it be a big seller in a flower shop? It could be. This one would probably work out a little bit expensive, but then, sure, everybody's treating themselves at the moment, aren't you? Sure, we all deserve a little treat. Now also what I feel is just to give me another little bit of texture, I have a little bit of silver Sussex. This is a foliage we use quite a lot at the school, and I just love it. I'm nearly adding it in as an extra texture, well, it is an extra texture, but nearly like a flower through the arrangement rather than a foliage to cover in the foam. And I just love the colour of it. I just think it's really, really nice. So again, I'm just going to turn it around to me just for a second, just so that I can see what I'm doing, because at this stage it's a little bit hard to work over myself. So keep sticking in, like as I call it, the fill in, fill in, fill in. And now we're at the stage, it's like now we're looking for little kind of gaps and kind of like foam that's still showing. So what I want you to do is bend down low, so bend your bum, bend your back, whatever. Look up into the arrangement, and again, if you see any little areas there that you could hide them, hide the foam there with little bits of greeny. And then I want you to turn it around to the side and have a look in at the side. So the side that's facing me now at the moment, I can see there's a little bit of foam showing. So again, I'm putting short little bits of greenery in there to hide it. And I'm sure probably the side that's facing you at the moment probably has a little bit of filler, but I'm going to turn that around to me now in a second. And that's the thing, when you're making flower arrangements at home, look at them from different angles all the time. So I'm going to turn that side around to you. Do you see that I've just covered it in? And now I'm looking over this side, and yes, there's a massive what we call cop-on spot. You know the way? So again, with short little bits of foliage, again, you can use little bits of the silver Sussex or whatever is the handiest. A great foliage for hiding floral foam, especially chunky pieces like where I'm at here at the moment, would be ivy out of the garden. And I'm just talking wild ivy, like not necessarily the trails of ivy, you know, like them wild ivy bushes. And sometimes this time of the year, you'll start to see the little seed head on it. That is an absolute brilliant foliage for coverage. And again, if you're on a budget, just to do this arrangement and keep it completely folded. Now I'm just going to clear my space there, just turn this around. We have a nice little baby pumpkin just to kind of like add in at the side. And there is the simplest pumpkin arrangement. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, you can always watch this from the start again if you like to re-watch it. And again, if you do have any questions, post them in the comments below. The best of luck, and please post your photographs and let me see what you've made at home. And what I'd really, really appreciate is all these free live tutorial classes that I'm posting. I would really appreciate if you clicked share. So tag maybe people that you know that like flower arranging, or please share it onto your own page, and just to help broaden our audience.